You know, is the rare YA fantasy story that is as original, powerful, funny, and entertaining as Jonathan, A Time of Prophecy. This electrifying novel pits the forces of evil and the guise of the consummate villain Emperor Macduff and his many minions against a motley crew of young people who don't agree on anything. Add to that fairy tale great and funny characters of Jonathan, Cindy, Prince Philip, and 12-year-old Alice. Focus groups of teenagers and their moms equate Jonathan, A Time of Prophecy, to Tolkien's Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter series with relish. Unlike those two renowned YA legends, however, Jonathan takes you to the quintessential present day coastal city and the all too familiar land of fairy tale, where the extraordinary does happen. All in all, I heartily recommend Dominic's novel. Listen up. Here's one of my favorite Jonathan experts. Jonathan spent a few minutes standing at his apartment door, wondering what to say to Cindy. Desperately needing someone to feel sorry for him, he had an overwhelming urge to admit he was all washed up, good for nothing. When he finally mustered the courage to enter, he found Cindy floating back and forth between the stove and the cupboards, humming a song in the cramped kitchen. A few dishes were already steaming in the counter, but that wasn't what drew Jonathan's attention and made his eyes pop out. On the windowsill, a dozen or so little birds of various colors and sizes rocked rhythmically to Cindy's tune. As she sang, on every tree there sits a bird singing a song of love. On every tree there sits a bird, and everyone I ever heard could break my heart without a word, singing a song of love. Jonathan gagged at the perfectly synchronized feathered chorus line. He couldn't even name half of those little creatures. Noticing him and his flabbergasted face, Cindy beamed and gently pushed him out of the kitchen. I will bring the supper right in. Just let me finish feeding them first. Yes, of course. That was all JJ could come up with. He returned to the living room, sat at his desk, and happened to catch his reflection in the silver metal lampshade. He had such a silly look on his face. Just then, Cindy entered with the dinner on the tray and placed it on the desk. Here you go. Enjoy. Jonathan looked at his plate, transfixed, as if he was expecting to see a dish made from a dragon's ear. Do dragons have ears? Crossed his mind, and the question suddenly seemed very, very important to him. Reading his thoughts again, Cindy chuckled discreetly and shook her head. They do, but it's better not to eat them. See, dragon's blood could be poisonous. Could be. Though it can give you superhuman strength if you kill the beast. Have you forgotten all your fairy tales, Jonathan? Listen, he began calmly, but couldn't help raising his voice as he went along. I'm trying to get this straight. First of all, a knight's pursuing you on horseback. Second, you speak about some different world, but certainly not this one, and not one in the present. Third, you know something about the fog that's putting people to sleep and driving police crazy. Fourth, I've seen the impression you make on men and now find out that the birds seem to love you too. Third, I know you are reading my thoughts and that. Fifth, actually, Cindy corrected him. Whatever. JJ became even more irritated. I know I wasn't supposed to ask you any questions, and I didn't. Don't get me wrong, I really appreciate your gracious presence in my humble place. But put yourself in my shoes. What am I supposed to think, huh? Am I losing my mind? Is that it? Or you're playing my mind tricks on me? I'm usually good at figuring people out, but you're a doozy, Cindy. Alice has it right. I'm just an old, stupid jackass and should give you up. Who's Alice? Asked Cindy, intrigued. My neighbor. Alice is from a different fairy tale, Cindy murmured. And you're not a jackass. Wait a minute. Don't change the subject. Either you tell me at once where you're from or what? Cindy frowned at him. Or, Jonathan shuddered, seeing her reaction. Or you will throw me out? Fine, I understand. You've put up with me long enough. With that, she opened the door and disappeared into the dark corridor.
So, you love fantasy novels as much as I do? Well, here's a book that is perfect for you. Jonathan and the Time of Prophecy. Have you heard about it? There's this guy, a budding private dick, who's as classy as you know who. Anyway, he teams up with this kid named Alice. She reminds me of my can't get rid of younger sister. And they're on the hunt for millions of dollars stolen from the bank. But that's not the end, because the guy who's behind it all is an evil emperor from the world of imagination, Macduff. This Macduff jerk is close to gaining full control over that world plus our own real world. So, Alice and Jonathan, with their friends from the world of imagination, Prince Philip and Cindy, gotta go through a portal to that world to fight an out-with Macduff. And that's a very dangerous mission, because the villain is the baddest guy you ever meet. Macduff is heartless, cruel, and a genius. Anyway, I'll just read you this bit and you'll catch on fast. Me, personally, I've loved reading every chapter of this novel, and I'm sure you'll love it too, just as much as Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter. Hang on, the detective rushed after her. That's not fair. It's not what I meant. In the semi-darkness, he unexpectedly bumped into Cindy, who was already returning to the studio. Her eyes filled with dread. She grabbed his arm, turned him around, and slamming the door behind them, whispered, "It's them. They're here." "Who? For God's sake!" As if on cue, a knock on the door quickly changed into violent pounding. "What the hell?" Jonathan started for the door, but Cindy seized him by the arm again and hissed, "Don't open it. We've got to run." "Chill. My home is my castle." "What castle? A castle has ramparts, a tower, and a moat." "Let's make a run for it, please." Once again, the hammering came from the corridor. Cindy tugged his sleeve, but Jonathan had already made up his mind. He needed to be brave today. "My apartment's my fortress, and this is my 45, he said proudly, drawing his gun from the holster. "Besides, how are we supposed to escape? Through the window? We're on the second floor. It's better than falling into the clutches. I'm telling you," Cindy pleaded, letting go of his arm and backing away. This time, the pounding was so loud it made Jonathan jump, but his fear morphed into anger. Aiming his gun, cautiously turned the doorknob. A crash rang out, the door flung open under someone's sizable weight, revealing a metal helmet, visor and plume of peacock's feathers. Silver encrusted armor shone from under the half-open cloak. The detective rushed to slam the door and pushed his back against it. "It's that same weirdo," he shouted, but didn't manage to finish because the door was swung open. The knight stumbled in. The sword was leveled right before JJ's eyes. And behind it, the horseman's enraged visage. Retreating 2 steps, Jonathan raised both hands. "I surrender. Let's talk." The knight called out loudly, "Cinderella!" Jonathan turned his head, but the hall to the kitchen was empty. "Out of my way, or do you want me to impale you?" the knight ordered. "Make yourself at home," replied the detective, stepping aside. The knight strode down the hallway into the kitchen, with Jonathan right behind. "Cinderella, my love, where are you?" the uninvited guest called out and then scowled at Jonathan, even more menacingly. In a flash, the tip of the sword was boring into Detective's Adam's apple. "If you've done something to her, you're not long for this world." "Me?" Jonathan asked, stupefied, and giggled because the sword was tickling him. "Give me a break. She's hiding from you." "I am not." Cindy's elegant voice startled him, and she appeared from behind the pantry door. "Cinderella!" beamed the knight, dropping his sword to the side and genuflecting. "Don't call me that. Who am I to call you?" Jonathan now noticed this young knight's face had a gentle, although sad expression, and his cheeks were gaunt. The armor and cloak were covered in a layer of dust and mud. The knight looked tired after a long journey and little sleep, but his eyes shone. Cindy struggled. "To friends, I'm Cindy." "Cindy?" asked the knight in disbelief. "Cindy! Cindy!" repeated the girl, growing even more irritated. He clearly seemed to get on her nerves. "I can't use my real name, and you have to be a complete idiot to come here in all that metal, all too medieval. The godmothers told me I'd meet fools along the way," he explained, embarrassed and troubled by her remarks. "Your worst fool is your stupidity," Cindy broke in. The visitor's cheeks turned deep red. "You forgot yourself, woman. You speaking to royal blood." "Perhaps you're a prince back home," Cindy shot back. "Here, you're loony in sheet metal with a bonehead. Am I right?" She turned to Jonathan. "Absolutely," Detective agreed and thought to himself, "That's my girl."